Since 2008, the Borneo Rhino Alliance, or BORA, dedicated its work to preventing the extinction of the hairy rhinoceros, commonly known as the Sumatran rhino. This is the native Southeast Asian rhino species, which used to be widespread throughout the region. At the end of 2019, the last hairy rhino in Malaysia, Iman, a female, died at Borneo Rhino Sanctuary in Sabah, rendering the species extinct except in the regions of Lerza, Waikambas National Park, and Mahakam Ulu in Indonesia. As we grow older and loved ones die, it becomes clear that death is a reality, and that applies to humans and animals alike. If there's a tragedy, the tragedy is not the death, but the particular circumstances. Most influential people and institutions responsible for endangered wildlife continue with the notion that poaching and habitat loss are the only key problems. The reality is that every hairy rhino that has died over the past century died in vain because there was no system in place to ensure that they contributed their eggs or sperm to making offspring within the context of a viable population. Puntung, Tam and Iman did not die entirely in vain because their living genomes are preserved in cell cultures. Following the loss of the hairy rhinos, we in BORA found ourselves questioning our purpose. We were at a crossroads with two possible courses of action. We could cut our losses, pack up, and go our separate ways, or we could find a new purpose. Carrying with us all the experience we had amassed, we chose to forge ahead, with the extinction of the hairy rhino in Malaysia as a driving force in breeding our rare animals. But as our planet comes up against its sixth mass extinction, we must ask ourselves, what is happening with our other native wildlife species, and why are the numbers declining?
For example, rhino. Rhino comes to breeding probably at about 6, 7, 8 years. Then they're in their prime stage. Then as they age above 20, their performance drops. And then when they reach 30, their performance drops. And when you talk about performance, physical side is one aspect of it. The micro side, which is the gametes, the sperm and the eggs, is totally a different issue totally. And as you get older, high abnormalities, and sometimes you don't even get sperm in the semen. It is nature. But people still make the assumption when you have an animal, it is going to breed until death. Totally wrong, and that's the misconception. And this is a major contributing factor to a lot of species in the wild. People see animal as numbers, and that animal might survive for the next 20 years without producing anything. What is important is now for the public, for the general public, including professionals. I always stress the word including professionals because it's just not any layman on the street. Even professionals do not understand this misconception. To them, it's just accepting what comes out more in the news or what is said out more in terms of habitat loss and poaching. If the public could accept the fact that fertility and reproductive health is an important issue, then perhaps what could happen is, number one, they should realize that what they get in any census, what they get in the camera traps are just a small representation of what is actually happening in the wild. And when I say about a small representation, it's a small representation of the normal individuals in the wild. It doesn't reflect the whole population.
There were fewer than 10 hairy rhinos left in Sabah at the time of Borneo Rhino Alliance's inception. Following the same trajectory, the Bornean banteng, usually known as tembadau, is now Sabah's most endangered wild species. Although poaching is always identified as a problem, we believe that inbreeding may be adversely affecting the scattered herds. On top of that, low quality and quantity of their favoured food, grasses, may be limiting their population recovery. Similar issues are likely affecting other species such as the Malayan tiger, Malayan tapir, and Malayan saladang. Looking at statistics, we will very likely see another one of our native species go extinct as well. This won't change as long as people keep on identifying poaching, habitat fragmentation, and awareness as the only problems to address. BORA is advocating and starting to put in place science-based measures to prevent further species extinctions. One of these biological methods is the preservation of living cell cultures.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Muhammad Luqman Maisa, the head of IUM Molecular and Cellular Biology Research Cluster IMOLEC. In 2016, IMOLEC formed a collaboration with BORA to derive cells from Malaysia's last 3 remaining Sumatran rhinos. Together, we managed to extract pieces of their kidneys, livers, lungs, hearts, skin, and other organs. From these remains, we are able to derive the primary cells to produce cell lines. In 2020, IMOLEC was granted funding from the Malaysian government to establish a frozen zoo for our research. In this frozen zoo, we have a whole range of cell culture instruments and apparatus, as well as 2 types of freezers, a negative 150 degrees Celsius ultra-cool freezer for long-term storage of cells, and a negative 80 degrees Celsius freezer that we use to temporarily store cells that we are currently using for research and analysis. Each cell goes through an authentication process before storing so as to ensure that the cells are legitimate. With help from Malaysia's Wildlife Department, we have managed to obtain the cell lines of various endangered species such as Malayan tiger, Malayan gaur, Malayan tapir, and Sumatran rhino. The cell lines play a vital role in the future of our endangered species. Using somatic cell cloning technology, we may one day be able to produce sperm and egg from induced pluripotent stem cell to clone animal that have gone extinct, like the Sumatran rhinos.
In wildlife conservation, health and fertility are paramount. As we enter the Anthropocene age, it is vital that new perspectives and measures are developed to manage the ongoing direction of our wildlife species. And that is why it is essential to be rightfully informed on the various factors that lead to population decline.
My name is Abdul Hamid Ahmad. I am a professor and I'm a dean at the Faculty of Sustainable Agriculture, University Malaysia Sabah. Wildlife live in the bush, and we perceive that they are doing well. They've been there for millions of years, and there's no reason for people to believe that there is a problem in the wildlife population. But then we have come to a point in which the populations of wildlife are dwindling, and in some species there are very few individuals left. In a situation in which you will have a skewed sex ratio towards the male, we know that the breeding potential of animals will have to be in the females. It is important for us to educate the public that it is now the time for this important intervention, and at the same time we are also allowed to do the intervention as quickly as possible.
Public awareness is crucial in this endeavor to encourage more cohesive conversation on the topic of rare species. By arming ourselves with knowledge and a clearer mindset, we can shift our perspective of wildlife extinction. We can utilize this experience to garner more attention on necessary interventions for native species in recognition of the lessons learned from our hairy rhinos.